Welcome to our Catching Up with Solved webinar. We recognize everyone is being inundated these days with webinar and virtual training invitations, so we are grateful to have you spend time with us today. To give people time to settle in, we're going to start with a short video. So before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. All attendees have been placed on mute. Please use the question or chat function and we will address them at the end of the presentation. This session has been designed not to be a full demonstration of our applications, but to highlight the new features and enhancements that have been implemented over the past year or so. Should you be interested in a more in-depth session, please contact us and we'll be happy to schedule something for you. So a quick introduction of your hosts. My name is Tammy Peterson and I head up sales and marketing here at Solved. Joining me is Brad Ashley, our customer success manager. Next slide, please. So we want to make you aware, not only are we available to assist you, but since we're based in Calgary, Alberta, we also rely on our network of authorized resellers to provide you with more localized support. And now I'll turn it over to Brad.
Thanks, Tammy. I want to talk a little bit about the process and some of the options that we have available prior to getting into the demo. So here on this slide, kind of talking back to that video that you first saw off the top is the process. So the acquisition of the data, whether it's new acquisition or purchasing something off the shelf, that is done by you, the customer, or your customer's customer, depending on what stage you're at. So all of the collection is done by you, and we collect none of the data. We really come part of the workflow at the processing and preparation phase, and then into the visualization, sharing, and collaboration slide. And so I'm going to walk us through that. On the data types side of things, we really excel with the data types of point cloud, images, and some of the other data types that I'll talk about. On the point cloud side of things, mobile, terrestrial, and aerial LiDAR works well in our system, as well as synthetic point clouds from photogrammetry. In addition to that, there's other data types that can be created into point clouds, such as hydrography, which can also be brought into the system. On the images side of things, panoramic photos are great, as well as planar photos, which can be converted into panoramics for within Engine, as well as aerial tiles of information that you might have. And then on the other side, we have your standard CAD models, GIS information, and Google files, as well as the 3D model side of things. And I'll walk you through all of these as we get going. I just also want to mention that on the storage side of things, you can store your data wherever you'd like. We don't need a copy at all. We don't want a copy. And so if you're using a cloud-based solution like Amazon or Azure, it's there. And as well, if you've got your own web server, we can work with that as well. So to get into the products, we've got Engine, which is our desktop application. It's a middleware toolkit for prepping that data and getting it ready for use. So, whether you need to process point cloud, you do some file conversions, maybe you've collected something in the wrong projection and you want to do those conversions, it's there and ready to get your data into the next steps. Whether those next steps are taking it into a CAD application or a GIS application, or hopefully into Solved in Compass. As Tammy was mentioning off the top, we want to talk about some of the recent features that have been added to the products. So here we have the updates that have happened inside of Engine. Additional conversion options such as LAS, E57, and PTX. Some standard industry conversions from Trimble equipment. We've now developed an opportunity to do blurring to ensure that your data is compliant with privacy requirements. So we have tools for blurring faces and license plates. And as well, we have options of creating synthetic images from dense point clouds. So I'm just going to take us into Engine. So as I mentioned, it's a desktop application. It's installed here on my laptop. All of the algorithms are here on the left-hand side. So depending on what you're trying to do with the application, you're going to look for those tools. A number of our more popular ones are listed here under popular, things like combining data, ground filters, and noise filters. As well as I mentioned under the utilities, we have a number of conversion options. In addition to that, we do have some tools that prep the data for Encompass to make sure that your data streams the best it can across the internet. I'll add some of these algorithms here. So we start with combine. Maybe we then do some ground filter. And then we add some sparse. And we start to loop these together. This makes a workflow which can then be saved or loaded later. So if you have someone on the higher end of your team that maybe wants to build these, we could then save that and load it later and simply execute it here to make it work. I'll go back to the PowerPoint now and talk a little bit more about Encompass. So on the Encompass side, this is a fully web-based application, so there is no installation. The data just has to be web accessible, as I mentioned earlier. So whether you're hosting it in the cloud or on your own web server, it just has to be able to be accessible to the internet. White labeling is available at no additional cost. And we've recently received the Release Ready Specialty distinction from Esri. Some of the recent features on this side include additional measurement tools, including piles and pits, as well as the ability to create elevation profiles, 3D model support in the form of IFC files, which can come directly from Revit, ArcGIS Online layers in both public and private, as well as many others that we'll look at here today in the demonstration. So I'll take us to that demo now. So this is the Solved in Compass application. Again, here I'm just using it in Chrome. This is the login screen. Each user will receive a username and password, and we do support single sign-on for those clients who use that. Here on the home screen is where we have our projects. We have a map. In this case, I'm zoomed out to the full world map, as I have projects from everywhere from Alaska through to South Africa. To get into those projects, we can either simply click on them individually here on the map, we can hover over the larger grouping and find our project, or we can actually locate it from up here in the top left. As well here from the homepage, we can get into our project management side of things, which is where we add new projects, invite new users, and manage the permissions of users within the system. So I'm going to take us into one of our projects here. I'll start with our Greenline project. We'll be going through a couple different projects to get the best feel for the application and talk about some of the newest features. So here inside of Greenline, this is a mobile scan application. So we have panoramic photo, we have the point cloud laid over top. We can always go into settings and change the way that we're looking at the point cloud, whether we want to change the visibility, whether we want to change the point size. As well, we can change things like color modes to be by classification or RGB value, as well as by height or distance. So here, I'll start with a number of the tools on the left-hand side, starting with measurements. So our standard measurement allows us to do something like if we needed the road width of this lane. So we can do that distance straight line, we get our distance, as well as our grade and angle. We now have our vertices of the beginning and end points, which can instantly be copied out to our clipboard if we need to take that into an email or something of the nature. As well, we can always change the name of this measurement up here at the top by editing it. If we are not working in metric, if we're working on an imperial project, we can change that down here at the bottom as well by going into imperial and getting that distance now in feet and inches. As well, we can save this measurement for later use or export it to a CSV. Some of the other new features that we're looking at here in this project, I'll just remove this measurement, are a number of the feature options that have now been made available. So we always have our base maps, which are available in our image or our aerial view, but now we have our web sources, and this is an example of one of those ArcGIS versions. So this is an ArcGIS online private map. That's why it's locked, because it's private. So when you click on that, you get taken into your ArcGIS online, and you're required to sign in. Once you've signed in, your layer starts to load here in aerial view, and you can see that these data sets have been loaded. As I click on them, you can see that the feature attributes have been brought in. So, whether you've got a different line or a bus line in this case, it tells you those different attributes that have been brought through from your ArcGIS online. If the layer wasn't private, simply be able to click it there and turn it on. Go back into 3D view. So in addition to this, we've always been able to bring in those CAD models and shapefiles, which are loading here. These are feature extracted by the client in this case. However, now we've actually brought in the ability to bring in those additional data sets. In this case, there's a 3D house that's been brought in here, as well as underground facilities. So if we actually go underground here, we can see the manholes and pipeline that connect underground. So this is some new types of data, again, that are able to be brought in here under the file sources and now looked at. Exit 3D mode and go back to the street. In addition to this, we've added the bookmarks option. So if we want to, have a location in the data that we want to send out to a client and ensure to maximize the sharing and collaboration side of things, ensure that they're seeing exactly what we're seeing, we've created the ability to save a current position and look. So if I click on this, it'll take me to that location. You'll notice the layers have been turned off and the different models have been turned off as well. So this is an ability to create that bookmark location, to share that out to clients and stakeholders. In addition, you can imagine using this bookmark option to tag that location that maybe you're working on. So if you're doing a QA/QC of this data and you want to ensure that you're not duplicating that effort, you could make a bookmark at the location where you've left off, or create a bookmark at a location that you want to go back to and reevaluate whether that data looks right. Finally, here inside of this project, I want to talk about our new data export option. So this is the ability to take a clip of data and take it into whatever application you might need to. So I'll simply make a polygon around this intersection that I'm interested in, give it a name, and add the data. Once I've done that, I can generate point cloud and images from that location. So any of the points that fall within it, as well as any images will be brought out. In the point side of things, we now get the ability to change the projection or use the standard one that was set up as part of the project, as well as change the LAS version. In addition, we can decide how dense we want the point cloud to be. And if we have different classifications, we can select those. You can think if you were doing a DEM or something of that nature, you might want just the ground instead of the never classified. And simply export that and it'll generate the LAS. Now you could take that into Recap and into an Autodesk application or through into any GIS application that'll accept a LAS file. In addition to that, on the images side, we can generate out the zip file of all the panoramic images, as well as a CSV of those locations. I'll quickly open up this, this last file that came out so that you can see that the clip is there. The important piece here is that that snip of the data didn't affect the back end of the database at all. So you can have multiple people taking small clips of data to do their feature extraction or modeling, and that original data set is still fully there. All right. I'm now going to jump to another project. So I'll jump to the 3D Rig project. This again is a mobile scan that was done with panoramic images. In this case, I've set this up to instantly load my bookmark location as I want it and with the right colors and features. You can now see that in this option, I've got a navigation which has been modified recently. So up until recently, you would see a sphere at each of the locations of the image collection. And in this case, we've now created this ability to just simply click and jump to the next photo. That again is managed under settings, and here under panoramic viewer, you can change whether you want the arrows, spheres, or you may want even none so that you could take screen captures of your information. I'll turn on, in this case, a proposed 3D rig that's on the side. And with this 3D model, you can actually do some measurements. So if you wanted to do a measurement on this rig, maybe you needed to know how high that railing was from the deck, you could do that and find out what your measurement is. Again, always being able to convert to imperial if you need to on the side. Here as well, I did set up a bookmark of a location that I wanted to show you. I can click on that and quickly go to that location, and all of the models turn on that I'm looking for. Here we've got a 3D pipeline that's been developed, and as well we have some asset tags that have been done. So in this case, there's some welds on this pipeline that were of interest. They were tagged in the field and given some information, and as well a photo was taken in the field that was attached. And so here we have our asset tag, which allows us to do that. If you want to create a new asset tag in the field or in the office, you can always just right-click, create new tag, and a widget will pop up and will allow you to create the title, comment, etc. as always. In addition, we have the ability to create an annotation tag. So if there was a concern at a location, we could mark that up and save and exit, or save and export that out as an image to send out to someone in an email. We also have built an API for managing these asset tags. So if you're using an asset tagging solution that maybe you've already implemented a bunch of those features, you can actually use the API and bring those through. And as you make changes in either our application or in your asset management solution, you can see those different assets. Finally, I'm going to jump to an aerial tile or an aerial project here. So in this case, in the past two cases, as I mentioned, they were mobile scanning with panoramic photos. In this case, this is an aerial collection. So we've got aerial LiDAR that's been collected at a high density here and colorized, as well as off the top, we were talking about different data types. So this is one of those aerial tiles. In this case, it's 3 centimeter imagery that's been loaded in here. You can see the, the clarity of the image that's been loaded. If I go back into my 3D view, I'm now going to talk about one of the new measurement tools. So starting with our new volume option. So maybe we want to do a pile measurement on this to find out what the volume of gravel in this pile is. You simply click around the exterior of the area that you're interested in, give it some definition, and double click to end. Now you'll see the points that have been included in that. If you needed to move it, you can always move the vertice to include more gravel. And then now on our left-hand side, we can see that we have a 2D area, as well as the ability to calculate a 3D volume. So if I click that, I now have my volume in cubic meters. Again, down here at the bottom, if I need this in imperial, I can get that in cubic yards. In addition to the ability to create those volumes, we've now also included the ability to create an elevation profile. So we'll start the elevation profile on the street on one side and end it on the other, giving us a full cross-section of that pile. So as we can see, as we move along, we can see the different heights or elevations. As well, we can always change this into feet and survey feet. We can also decide which points we want to include. If we want to include the highest, lowest, or all points that are within that swath or profile. We can now save this image or copy the image if we need to take it into a report or something that maybe we're working on. And now I'll jump back to the PowerPoint. So as you've seen, a number of new features have recently been brought into the applications. However, we obviously are always working on new applications. So in the short term, we'll be working on some new improvements on the command line of Engine. This is designed to allow users to introduce our commands within existing workflows and program languages that maybe you're currently working with. As well, we'll allow for multiple point clouds to be loaded. This will allow you to bring multiple different areas of a project in separate point clouds. You can imagine maybe you have a several-story building and each story has been collected as a different point cloud. Or maybe you've collected mobile scan along a highway and then gone back and done terrestrial scanning underneath bridges or overpasses and want to keep those as separate project areas. That will be available in the coming month. Additionally, we'll be adding some IFC models improvement to make that experience a little more streamlined. In the more medium term, so within the next few months, we'll be doing more on the support of measurements and tags and image-only projects. So for those of you who collect panoramic images only and don't collect LiDAR or point cloud, we're looking to do additional supports for those on the measurement side as well as the tagging. And finally, we're looking at improving our search functionality and specifically the integration of LRS systems or linear referencing systems to ensure that we are providing the applications and tools that you need to make your projects work.
If you do end up having some questions, please feel free to contact us. Here is our email address to reach Brad or myself. And of course, you can reach out to any of our authorized resellers. So if you'd like more details on either of the applications or any of the features you've seen today, I also encourage you to check out the videos on our YouTube page. We typically produce a video for new features as they're released, so it's a good resource to refer back to. Alternatively, contact us again or any of our resellers in your area to schedule a demonstration.